Hey everybody, welcome back to another speaker upgrade and tech talk type video today. Today we're looking at the Wharfedale little EVO 4.4 model, and specifically we're going to look at and talk about vertical off-axis measurements and why that's important. And this speaker illustrates why that's important very much. A lot of times I do these upgrades and I see guys saying something in the comments section of, well, you can just EQ the speaker and get the same result. You can just add a little here or take away a little there with an EQ and the results would be the same as what you get. You're just smoothing out the response. No, not true at all. And we're going to talk about that specifically and talk about why that's not true and how different it can be, even if the on-axis response is the same, how different the overall presentation of the speaker can be. First of all, the little EVO speaker here, nicely built as far as looks go. The base, which you can't see in the video here, looks nice. It's got some spiked feet that it sets on. The finish and the veneer looks nice. The drivers look nice. Plastic frames on there, which I'm a fan of, the more style polymer frames. This is a more breakable style plastic, but it works okay. It doesn't really ring like a lot of frames do. So I like that about the woofer. The material was such that there wasn't a lot of breakup. The dome mid measured pretty well. And this air motion transformer tweeter up top there, it measured okay. I mean, it has a reasonable response, but a limited range. It wouldn't play down very low. The crossover that's in these things, oh man, cheesy, cheap parts throughout the whole thing. Same goes for the wiring, the binding post, all that. Nothing special there, nothing high in there. But what they did do with the design of the crossover was they somewhat balanced the on-axis response, other than the top end rolling right off of it. So let's start there. Let's look at the measurements and let's do kind of a comparison, kind of a before and after. Let's look at the on-axis response the way it was from the factory. Let's put that here. And then right below it here, let's put the on-axis response after I was through designing a whole new crossover for it. As you can see, both of them are fairly smooth, other than the original has a huge drop in the top octave. Other than that, you'd think, well, you didn't change it that much, you just made it hotter in the top. Well, if that's the only thing you look at, then that could be a conclusion that you draw, but there's more to this picture. Let's look also at the crossover response of the original here. And when I shoot the individual responses, the two woofers are on one binding post and the tweeter mid on another binding post. So what you're seeing is the tweeter mid pod and the woofers below. Now what I did was, of course, and I could show these individually, I pushed that crossover points down as low as I could with this tweeter, which was not very low. It was about 3,200. That's as far as it would go. And I let the mid play on down a little bit lower and used a little bit of a filler driver concept with that, because it's kind of filling that gap between the two. But overall, a nice, smooth balance, and you can tell that the drivers are in phase really well at the measuring point. Now, here's where things get interesting. Let's look at the vertical off-axis of the original. And let's put that here. And then let's look at the vertical off-axis when I was through with it and look at it here. You'll notice the differences here are quite dramatic. And what I'm doing when I'm designing the crossover is I'm looking at the time arrival of the output of each driver, and I'm looking at it over a wide range. So what I'm trying to accomplish is an even response over a wide range. So the floor reflection and the ceiling reflection will still be somewhat the same as the on-axis response. We won't have a low frequency reflection and a hot spot up high somewhere and a hole in the middle. We want to have an even room response, and to have an even room response, you have to consider what it's doing up and down. Also, if you, for instance, were to stand up in the room while it's playing, you don't want the whole tonal balance to shift and it sound like all the highs just dropped out of it when you stood up. It already has a fairly tall tweeter I want to say it's little over 2 inches tall. And anytime a tweeter starts getting taller, its vertical dispersion begins to narrow. So it does have that issue, but overall, if you look at the vertical versus what I did with it in the vertical, you'll notice a very different presentation there. Much smoother, much more balanced all the way across. Also, look at the horizontal off-axis. You look at the horizontal off-axis, do a before and after on that. You'll notice it, again, is much smoother all the way across. With that top end lifted back up to flat, it doesn't lose so much when you go in the horizontal off-axis, so a lot more balanced. Let's look at the spectral decays. The spectral decay was pretty clean on it to begin with. We didn't see stored energy in the drivers, and whenever I shot the spectral decay on the new one that I had come up with, it looks almost the same, other than it's more balanced all the way across. Same thing goes for the impedance. If you look at the impedance, I didn't do anything radically different there. It looks very similar as far as levels as what it did before, and it drops now to a minimal, let's see, 4.4 ohms down at the bottom end there. So overall, actually no, it's dropping to 4.4 ohms. So overall, some things changed a little, some things changed a lot. The other thing that's hugely different whenever we do an upgrade is the difference in the quality of those parts. Like I said, the parts quality used in this thing, super cheesy. And I'll throw up a picture of the crossover and let you look at how that thing looked originally. And of course, when we send out an upgrade kit for it, it's going to have sonic caps in the tweeter circuit. It's going to have JB caps or URSA caps in the mid circuit, good poly caps, all US coils, and Dayton resistors that are the copper resistors. So the difference there is pretty dramatic. No iron core inductors, no electrolytic capacitors. So there's so much difference in clarity and detail levels and preservation of keeping things in phase and not disrupting the time arrival of everything. It's going to create a more layered sound field, a more open and more, bigger sound stage. So there's a lot that goes into the upgrade that's improvements that go well beyond just what you see on the surface as far as frequency response. That's barely even a drop in the bucket compared to all the other things that are involved. Also, we're throwing in 4 sheets of no-res with these because it needs it. It's kind of thin. There's some bracing in there, but it's overall kind of thin. The no-res is going to help with controlling those resonances, tightening up the bass response, and clearing up that vocal region quite a bit. We're also going to replace those binding posts on the back with a set of tube connectors and give you a much cleaner sound across the board. Plus new wiring to rewire everything with. So we're going to put a whole package together. I haven't even gotten all of this totaled up in front of me yet, but we'll have all of that totaled on the website. You can go there, click on it, and order the complete kit, and you can upgrade these things and make a pretty significant improvement. Overall, I would say when we were done with this one, the results were excellent. Very much so excellent. The driver quality, again, very good. It just needed a little help with parts quality. It needed a little bit of help with the time arrival of the drivers and maintaining a constant response in the vertical off-axis. All of those things are going to be significant changes and should turn this into a very impressive sounding speaker. I've had other guys contact me recently. In fact, one particular guy who owns a large pair of Wilson audio speakers, and he said his buddy brought in one of the little small Wharfedales that we designed an upgrade for, and he had our upgrade in there, and he was surprised when they did the comparison that the little speaker, he said, blew away his Wilson audio speakers in every way except for dynamics. You know, the bigger speaker had better dynamics, but other than that, the imaging, the clarity, the detail levels, all of those things exceeded his Wilson, which didn't surprise me because whenever we went into that little Wharfedale speaker, I praised the quality of the drivers that were in that one to begin with. And I think this one is the same way. It's got some good quality drivers. It just needed a lot of help on the back end. So You can take an inexpensive speaker like this, or even like the little bookshelf, and improve the quality of the parts and the delivery of that signal and make significant improvements. And for not a lot of money, you can have a Wilson audio beater. All that guy needed was a subwoofer with it to make it full range, and that little tiny Wharfedale was quite the giant killer. And I could say that same thing for a lot of our X series kits as well. If you haven't purchased a speaker and you want to get into this, you want to do DIY, rather than go out and buy something and then send it to me for me to design a upgrade for it to bring it up to a good level, you might just start with one of our kits. All those X series kits are good candidates, and it'll get you there immediately. And there's a lot of support and help and resources there for you on our forum at Audio Circle to make that easy for you. So that's it for this one. I hope you enjoyed this little video on the little EVO 4.4. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, again, please do. I know I always say that at the end of the videos, but I really appreciate you guys subscribing, and I appreciate all the views, and hopefully we'll see you again in the next one.